Good morning. My name is Jane, and I'm an independent journalist. I've been trying to warn people and stop what's happening in 2022 since 2010. I'm sitting at a place down by a river. I come here every morning, and the river flows that way. And because we're within 7 miles of the Pacific Ocean, the tide comes in this way on top of the river and goes 50 miles that way. There's a log in the river that's been just motionless for the last 20 minutes, which means there's an exact balance between the river pushing it out to sea and the last little bit of the incoming tide. And they're in balance. And that's where the world is today with the war. We're at the balance point between will we become a spiritual world where stuff like this doesn't happen, where you can't just crash into somebody else's country with tanks and take all their stuff. They want to take all the farmland. The grain comes out of Ukraine. Maybe it was 1/13 of the world's food supply. The big power plant that powers most of Ukraine and lots of the rest of Europe, and the nuclear power plant as well. This is a resource grab. And behind them saying this is for the Russian people who are trapped in Ukraine, it's a resource grab. And behind that are titanic forces that are very seldom exposed. Companies like BlackRock, which own enough of the world to be noticeable. And just quickly, I had a newsletter going out, and it was stopped by a company called Spam House in Germany, which is, I guess, a nice service trying to stop spam. I wanted to find out how do we talk to Spam House, and on the way there I ran into a gigantic, titanic, unbelievably huge internet presence, a company that would eat Google for breakfast, for example. And I went through them, got to Spam House, and explained this is a newsletter from my previous clients, and they checked into it and they said, okay. But who is Spam House and who's paying them? Doesn't matter. There are these huge forces behind the scenes that we know nothing about. The Chinese book, the I Ching or the Yi Jing, says man is born into a pre-pona, which means in power before system of relationships. And one grows up and finds out that it's not a well-meaning world. Ethics are being broken everywhere. It's not an ethical world. And if you had good parents, you want to try to do something about that. The odds are 100 billion to 1, and that's actually $100 billion against you. I have heard from several directions that the people who are doing this, whatever, they have several names, Illuminati, for example. This has been going on for a few thousand years. What I want to talk about today is they say that those people, whatever endeavor they call themselves, are obliged to tell us what they're going to do to us, to be fair in their own estimation. And if we're too stupid to pick up on it, it's too bad for us. Which I guess is similar to a football game where you're going to have a play to trick the guys on the other side. So you say, we're coming to score a goal on you, and here we come, and they pull some shenanigans around the back and literally do an end run around and score a goal. So this could, in some sick sense, be a game for them where we sick and starve and die. So the members of this group occasionally put out something to warn us. Either they're doing it as we have to tell them what we're doing, or they feel bad about what they're doing, so they let something slip. And one of those, the most apropos or applicable one, is the book 1984. And what's in 1984 is a world at war between China, Eurasia, and the Western powers. And what they're fighting over is ethics and Africa, ownership of Africa. Does that sound familiar? So, I used to have a big site that had 1.2 million people attached to it, and that was taken down because I was telling the truth, or my truth, as my teacher snapped at me. Now I have this new site where I have about 4 people who look at that stuff. Hello. If you want to spread the word out into the people who don't know about this, don't believe it, invite them over and show them the movie 1984. There are 3 versions of this. There's the original one, which is maybe 47. It's black and white, made in England. There's a newer one, which Richard Burton is in. And there's a 3rd one. These are available for free on YouTube. You can watch them. And hopefully, if someone watches this movie, they'll go, hey, wait a minute, that sounds pretty close to what's happening right now. So you have 3 movies you can invite people over to watch, or have a group come and show the movie, or forward it to people on your friends and contacts list. There's also audiobooks for people who are so depressed that they can only lie on the couch with a warm cloth on their eyes. Those are also available free on YouTube. And there was a New York play of this that was so spot on the money as far as totalitarianism goes. People were throwing up in the theater and running out screaming. They couldn't take it. I don't know if that was ever filmed, but Connected to this, if for those who want to know, there's two books, The Theory of Celestial Influence by Rodney Coleman and In Search of the Miraculous by Peter Ouspensky. And they say that this totalitarianism and war is caused by the pressure of planetary influences on the minds of man and woman. And George Gurdjieff, who's another one of these esoteric teachers, was asked by Peter Ouspensky once, can war be stopped? And Gurdjieff said yes. And up to that point, he'd always said no, it's impossible to do anything about it. And he explained the fact that this is when planets get too close together, there's tension between the planets. And he uses the analogy of when you pass somebody, say you're walking down the sidewalk and six thugs are walking the other way, you get a little tense. That thing happens between the planets. And in coming through the thin biological film on the Earth, they make people very uncomfortable. And the solution for this uncomfortableness is to go and smash somebody else's head in, according to George Gurdjieff. Right now, at this juncture, pun intended, Jupiter is here at its closest approach since 1963, and at that time was the Cuban Missile Crisis, where Russia, I think, had already, before that, smashed into Europe and taken about a third of Europe, and was going to put nuclear missiles on Cuba, or Cuba, as President Kennedy called it. And the U.S. said, if you do that, we will nuke you because it's tantamount to war because you're 7 minutes out. There's nothing we can do. That stopped that. And according to the world's top astrological scientist, he's the person who's at the pinnacle of all this, says the point of the close approach of Jupiter is to shorten the crisis, actually not to make it worse. So we may hope for that this thing will go on for years. Also, on the 22nd of October, where Venus is in all of this, will switch from negative to positive, and it will be the actual beginning of the age of Aquarius. So if nothing happens for a week, things may get better. It's been peaceful in the modern world for a long time. And suddenly you have, which wasn't made a big deal, China trying to move into, they took Tibet back. We have different parts of India trying to take land from each other. They have the Chinese trying to get into India, saying this is ours. And that was over there, okay, yeah, whatever. And now Russia coming back into Europe, theoretically at a time where you can't just do that anymore. You can't just take a bunch of tanks and roll into somebody's country and take everything. It's bad form. So This is economic. Russia's a gigantic place with unbelievable amounts of anything you could ever imagine. But they don't have any ports along the north because of the Arctic, and China's on their eastern flank. They don't have any ports over there. And they don't have any ports on this southwestern part where they have to deal with Turkey and paying money to go through the States or paying money to run their pipelines through there. So this is just economic move. We want the food in Ukraine. We want the two power plants, and we want the ports. So we're just going to take them. We the people, we the sheeple, thought it was not going to happen like that anymore. So we sit here watching the news every day. They used to say when I was young, the revolution will be televised. Well, now World War III is televised. To a stupid degree, we have hour-long videos telling the Russians what the strategy of the West is going to be, and how many munitions there are, and how many troops are being moved here. That would be treason with the firing squad in World War II. And now it's someone like me with a cell phone on a $7 stand going on the internet, accessing this information and putting it on their blog. And well, before it slips my mind, this EMP, electromagnetic pulse, there is no electromagnetic pulse weapon that is capable of doing anything on a large scale except for detonating a nuclear device in the atmosphere, because when you detonate nuclear style, you get a flash of light that is so bright that even if you're facing away from it with your eyes closed, you'll go blind. Second thing is an electromagnetic pulse, gigantic electromagnetic pulse, and that's what they're talking about. So to do EMP attacks, you would need a separate nuclear device exploded above an area, say like New York, and then you could knock out a lot of electronics that have chips in them. So there's a lot of rabble-rousing about EMP. Oh, EMP. Well, EMP requires a missile. And if you have a missile coming, it's going to be seen on radar. And there's lots of anti-missile stuff. Plus, if you start setting off nuclear bombs above a Western country, they're going to get upset. In about 3 minutes. So that couldn't be part of anything except an all-out World War III, where you send lots of missiles to lots of cities and lots of countries to take them out. The science fiction movies where they have an EMP unit in a van, probably not true. Why can I say this? I have a company that makes medical devices, and one of them is a magnetic pulsar. And This goes about 18 inches, and it took us 2 years to figure out how to make it so it wouldn't blow up, because it's a high voltage going through a coil of wire with an iron core. And someone came to me and wanted me to make him a device that would go about 3 feet, and it can't be done with current technology. So all this, I don't think that the thing in the van is science fiction. So what do we have on the news? We have China with their Belt and Road Initiative trying to control as much of the world as possible to funnel stuff back to China because they have a lot of people to feed. In the book 1984, they were called East Asia. We have Russia and the let's just go with Russia. Russia was called Eurasia, Europe and Asia. I'm not sure how much of Europe was included in the book 1984. But we had the European Union was trying to supersede the United States as a big economic power, and they got to about 60% of world trade. And I think that's when the U.S. empire decided to strike back. Is that a movie, The Emperor Strikes Back? And the third portion of the book is called Oceania, which was England, because the motto for them was called Ings, E-N-G-S-O-C, which Ingsoc, which is actually English Society. And Oceania, probably because of the British Empire. So these three forces were always constantly at war. And 2 against 1. And because it was not real, they very often had to switch loyalties, which would make it possible to get grain and soybeans, iron ore, whatever they needed from the former enemies. So you would have Oceania and Eurasia, which would be England and Europe against, including Russia, Europe, against China, East Asia, on Monday. And on Tuesday, because a deal was struck over resources, you would have Oceania and East Asia against Eurasia. And to bring this out in the book, the book is from the viewpoint of a man who works in the news. His job is to change the news retroactively. They have to go back and change all the articles about who's fighting whom, and troop music movements, and other such things. So right now we have, I don't watch the mainstream news. I only hear people talking about it. I get most of my information from the people who are not allowed on YouTube. It looks like the scenario is very close to what's in 1984. a group of people pushing for world domination, which is a dream someone could have, like Hillary Clinton wanting to be the first female president. I don't think she ever said the best president, but it was like the first female president. That position is the most powerful position on the planet right now, and it's not something to be toyed with. It's not like winning Wimbledon. And